Good evening, and welcome to another bedtime story from www.planetshnars.com presents. Tonight we have Tigger Comes to the Forest. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel before you go. We hope that you enjoy our story tonight. This is narrated by Darth Dracul. Chapter 1, Tigger Makes an Appearance. Winnie the Pooh woke up suddenly in the night and listened. Then he got out of bed and lit his candle. He stumped across the room to see if anyone was trying to get into his honey cupboard. There weren't, so he stumped back again and got into bed. Then he heard the noise again. "Is that you, Piglet?" he said. But it wasn't. "Come in, Christopher Robin." But Christopher Robin didn't. "Wara, wara, 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 wara," said whatever it was. What can it be, thought Pooh. It isn't a growl, and it isn't a purr, and it isn't a bark. It's a noise made by a strange animal, and he's making it outside my door. So I shall get up and ask him not to do it. Pooh got out of bed and opened his front door. "Hello," said Pooh. "Hello," said whatever it was. "Who is it?" said Pooh. "Me," said a voice. "Oh," said Pooh. "Well, come here. I'm Pooh." "I'm Tigger," said Tigger. "Oh," said Pooh. "Does Christopher Robin know about you?" "Of course he does," said Tigger. "Well," said Pooh, "it's the middle of the night, which is a good time for going to sleep. Tomorrow morning we'll have some honey for breakfast. Do Tiggers like honey?" "They like everything," said Tigger. "If they like going to sleep on the floor," said Pooh, "I'll go back to bed. Good night." When he awoke in the morning, the first thing he saw was Tigger looking at himself in the mirror. "Hello," said Pooh. "Hello," said Tigger. "I found somebody just like me." Pooh got out of bed and began to explain what a mirror was. "Excuse me a moment," said Tigger. "There is something climbing up your table." With one loud wara 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 wara, he jumped at the end of the tablecloth, pulled it to the ground, and wrapped himself up in it 3 times. After a terrible struggle, he got his head into the daylight again. "Have I won?" he said cheerfully. "That's my tablecloth," said Pooh, as he began to unwind Tigger. "I wondered what it was," said Tigger. Pooh put the cloth back on the table. Then he put a large honey pot on the cloth, and they sat down to breakfast. Tigger took a large mouthful of honey and then looked up at the ceiling. He made exploring noises and considering noises and what have we got here noises. Then he said in a very decided voice, "Tiggers don't like honey." "Oh," said Pooh, "I thought they liked everything." "Everything except honey," said Tigger. Pooh said that as soon as he had finished, he would take Tigger to Piglet's house. There, Tigger could try some of Piglet's acorns. "Thank you, Pooh," said Tigger. Acorns is really what Tiggers like best. 2, in which Tigger meets a very small animal. So after breakfast, Pooh and Tigger went around to see Piglet. Pooh explained as they went that Piglet was a very small animal who didn't like bouncing. So Pooh asked Tigger not to be too bouncy at first. Tigger, who had been hiding behind trees and jumping out on Pooh's shadow, said that Tiggers were only bouncy before breakfast. So by and by, they knocked at the door of Piglet's house. "Hello, Pooh," said Piglet. "Hello, Piglet. This is Tigger." "Oh, is it?" said Piglet. He edged round to the other side of the table. "I thought Tiggers were smaller than that." "Not the big ones," said Tigger. "They like acorns," said Pooh. "And poor Tigger hasn't had any breakfast." Piglet pushed a bowl of acorns towards Tigger. "Help yourself," he said. Tigger filled his mouth with acorns. After a long munching noise, he said, "Ears, oi, ours." "What?" said Pooh and Piglet. "Scoosy," said Tigger, and went outside for a moment. When he came back, he said firmly, "Tiggers don't like acorns." "You said they liked everything except honey," said Pooh. "Everything except honey and acorns," explained Tigger. "Oh, I see," said Pooh. "What about thistles?" asked Piglet. "Thistles?" said Tigger. is what Tiggers like best." "Then let's go along and see Eeyore," said Piglet. So the three of them went. Chapter 3, in which Tigger tries to eat a thistle. After they had walked and walked, they came to the part of the forest where Eeyore was. "Hello, Eeyore," said Pooh. "This is Tigger." Eeyore walked all round Tigger one way. Then he turned and walked all around him the other way. "What did you say it was?" he asked. "Tigger?" "Ah," said Eeyore. "He's just come," explained Piglet. "Ah," said Eeyore again. He thought for a long time and then said, "When is he going?" Pooh explained that Tigger was a great friend of Christopher Robin's, who had come to stay in the forest. "And Tiggers always eat thistles. That was why we came to see you, Eeyore." Eeyore led the way to the most thistly-looking patch of thistles that ever was. "A little patch I was keeping for my birthday," he said. "But after all, what are birthdays? Here today, gone tomorrow. Help yourself, Tigger." Tigger thanked him and looked a little anxiously at Pooh. "Are these really thistles?" he whispered. "Yes," said Pooh. "What Tiggers like best." "That's right," said Pooh. "I see," said Tigger. So he took a large mouthful, and he gave a large crunch. "Ow," he said. He sat down and put his paw in his mouth. "What's the matter?" asked Pooh. "Hot," mumbled Tigger, shaking his head to get the prickles out. "Tiggers don't like thistles." "But you said," began Pooh, "that Tiggers like everything except honey and acorns." "And thistles," said Tigger. Pooh looked at him sadly. "What are we going to do?" he asked Piglet. Piglet knew the answer to that. They must go see Christopher Robin. "You'll find him with Kanga," said Eeyore. Pooh nodded and called to Tigger. "We'll go and see Kanga. She's sure to have lots of breakfast for you." "Come on," Tigger said, and he rushed off. Chapter 4, in which Tigger finally eats breakfast. Pooh and Piglet walked slowly after Tigger, and as they walked, Piglet said nothing, because he couldn't think of anything, and Pooh said nothing because he was thinking of a poem. And when he had thought of it, he began. "What shall we do about poor little Tigger? If he never eats nothing, he'll never get bigger. He doesn't like honey and acorns and thistles, because of the taste and because of the bristles. And all the good things which an animal likes have the wrong sort of swallow or too many spikes." Tigger had been bouncing in front of them all this time, turning round every now and then to ask, "Is this the way?" Now at last they came to Kanga's house, and there was Christopher Robin. Tigger rushed up to him. "Oh, there you are, Tigger," said Christopher Robin. "I knew you'd be somewhere." "I've been finding things in the forest," said Tigger importantly. "I found a Pooh and a Piglet and an Eeyore, but I can't find any breakfast." Pooh and Piglet explained what had been happening. "Don't you know what Tigger's like?" asked Pooh. "I expect if I thought very hard I should," said Christopher Robin, "but I thought Tigger knew." "I do," said Tigger. "Everything there is in this world except honey and acorns and what were those hot things called?" "Thistles." "Yes, and those." "Okay, well then," said Christopher Robin. "Kanga can give you some breakfast." So they went into Kanga's house, and Roo said, "Hello, Pooh," and "Hello, Tigger" twice, because he had never said it before, and it sounded funny. Then they told Kanga what they wanted. "Well, look in my cupboard, Tigger dear," Kanga said very kindly, "and see what you would like." But the more Tigger put his nose into this and his paw into that, the more things he found which Tiggers didn't like. "What happens now?" he said when he had tried everything in the cupboard. Kanga, Christopher Robin, and Piglet were all standing around Roo, watching him have his extract of malt. "Must I?" said Roo. "Now, Roo dear," said Kanga, "you remember what you promised." "What is it?" whispered Tigger to Piglet. "His strengthening medicine," said Piglet. He hates it." So Tigger came closer and he leaned over the back of Roo's chair. Suddenly he put out his tongue and took one large gallop. "Oh," said Kanga, pulling the spoon out of Tigger's mouth. But the extract of malt was gone. "Tigger dear," said Kanga. "He's taken my medicine," said Roo happily. "He's taken my medicine! He's taken my medicine!" Then Tigger looked up at the ceiling. He closed his eyes, and his tongue went round and round. A peaceful smile came over his face. "So that's what Tigger's like," he said, which explains why he always lived at Kanga's house afterwards. Tigger had extract of malt for breakfast, dinner, and tea. And sometimes, when Kanga thought Tigger wanted strengthening, he had a spoonful or two of Rue's breakfast as medicine. "But I think," said Piglet to Pooh, "that he's been strengthened quite enough." Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Please subscribe to our Planet Shnars YouTube channel before leaving. Good night. Sweet dreams. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Take care, and we'll see you again next time.